Welcome back to the OurView Podcast. On today's episode, I welcome my guest, Gigi Robinson. Gigi is an advocate, educator, and speaker whose platform focuses on body image, chronic illness, and mental health. Join our discussion as we discover everything we need is within, a conversation about body positivity. I would like to welcome everybody back to another episode of the OurView Podcast, where we aim to raise awareness, educate, and change the tone of conversation about disabilities. I am very happy to welcome my guest to the podcast today, and looking forward to our conversation. So I would like to welcome Gigi to the podcast.
Hello.
Hello. It is great to meet you face to face. Through Zoom, of course. But thank you so much for your time today. And thank you for connecting with me through the wonderful new app of Clubhouse. Can you tell us who is Gigi?
Yes, absolutely. Well, hello, everyone. My name is Gigi Robinson. I am a New York City-based content creator, digital artist, photographer, consultant. I wear many hats, but I kind of like it that way. And I have Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, POTS, and mast cell activation syndrome. So they're all invisible illnesses unless I am, injured or recovering from an injury and wearing a brace or a cast. And I've been diagnosed with EDS specifically since I was 11, and I'm only 22 now, so that's about half my life. But it's really interesting because I didn't really acknowledge or come to terms with my chronic condition until honestly 2019, when I was a senior in college, and a lot had to happen to get me to come to terms with it. And I thought for a while, nobody wants to talk about my invisible illness. Nobody wants to acknowledge it. Nothing's wrong with me. That's what I was kind of thinking. Like obviously my family was always nice and like, oh, like, little things, like, oh, like I can carry your backpack, or like, random little things that do help, because with EDS, for those that don't know, it's a connective tissue disorder. And basically, for me at least, the way that it manifests in my body is that pretty much doing anything can like set off a muscle pull or a muscle tear. And because the muscles and the ligaments are so loose in my body, it makes it easier for my joints to sublux and fall out of place. And basically it's just not fun. Makes me in this state of chronic pain all the time. And it's definitely a really hard thing to manage, because from when I was diagnosed pretty much until, like I said, in 2019, mentally I was like, you're not sick, just ignore the pain, it's not there. And I think by the time that I had these really intense flare-ups, it was when I had to like take this step back and be like, okay, you do have pain, you can't manage your lifestyle as is without medication. You need a better support system and you need more rest, like just plain and simple. And I ended up having to speak with the disability office at my school, which I've always been registered with. So if you're somebody in university and you're in school, make sure that you register with them. They're on your side. They're there to help you and vouch for you. And yeah, so I ended up taking a reduced course load for 2 semesters to try to manage my health, and the pandemic happened and I ended up just doing that from home. So I don't know if that was helpful or not. I can't really speak to it, but I did, graduate, and I'm actually in my master's now, and I'm just really, really grateful that I can do it all from my bed right behind me.
Right. Yes, that is. I love that you mentioned the disability services at the schools, at the colleges. Those are great resources for everyone to to take use of, and they're very helpful with understanding and figuring things out for you and what works for you individually for your disability diagnosis. So I know you talked a little bit about what EDS is. Can you talk about your other diagnosis and how everything just impacts your daily life?
Yeah, so for anyone living with all three, most people know, I guess, who have EDS, that POTS and mast cell often are, the brother and sister of EDS. They're under that umbrella of dysautonomia, and Mm, mast cell makes things difficult because I could be allergic or have an allergic reaction to the smallest thing. So, for example, if I wear something that has like a specific dye in it, it could cause me to like break out in hives, or like have like some strange allergic reaction. And there's honestly, I found not much that I can do to manage it. An example that, I always will talk about is drinking alcohol. Like with mast cell, I mean, basically it's your body is confused on how to respond to histamines. So alcohol is something, and like nuts, they have a lot of histamines in them. So like anytime I eat a handful of nuts or like an acidic fruit, I'll get like canker sores and ulcers in my mouth. Like those, I don't know, those little ulcers, they're
Hmm.
such a pain in the butt. And so it's something that's annoying that happens, and I feel like it just happens because of mast cell. There's not really an explanation for it. And people are like, we don't know how to treat them, we don't know where they come from, but they can be caused by XYZ. And then with alcohol, for me at least, it will cause my eyes to puff up to the point where I can barely open them the morning after, typically. So I honestly, in 2020 so far, I mean, oh my God, in 2021,
Hmm.
I have kind of committed to going sober. And I just think, honestly, it's something that's so little. And I think there's so many other, beauties of life that you don't necessarily need alcohol for. And I know that drinking will really affect my body in a way that it makes me feel miserable. So um yeah, I'm done with that. That's like the
Hmm.
first time I publicly announced it, so I guess that's cool.
Yes.
But but yeah, mast cell, it's not, I don't know if it necessarily causes me like the chronic pain that I have. I'm pretty sure that's just like the EDS. And yeah, and then POTS is basically like, I'm gonna give you a very simple like image of what that is, but it's basically like those moments where you stand up too quickly and you feel like you're gonna black out, but like it actually causes your heart rate to go like through the roof, and it's honestly very scary. I personally have not fainted, but I've like almost fainted a couple times. Like I had like my dad nearby, or I had like a bed nearby that I could kind of like grab onto. And honestly, it's really, really scary. It's a scary condition. I have very mild symptoms of POTS, but nonetheless, I think it's important to acknowledge and talk about those symptoms, because um at the end of the day, like a doctor said like, hey, you have this. And I'm not going to discredit that to like, oh, I just got dizzy this once. It's like, no, like I actually have things that I need to do to take care of myself to prevent those scarier moments from happening.
Yeah, it's I really thank you for sharing all of that. I wanted to um make sure that you had a chance to explain what those diagnoses mean, because um, a lot of times we hear things, we hear terms that are people have this, people have that, but we don't know what the impact it has on the individual. And as you said, you know certain things that would cause the flare ups. Like you said, it's alcohol for you with the mast cell, and it's just I think people with disabilities, people with different diagnoses, we learn these things about ourselves, and then it's just like, okay, I might have to change this or not do that. And um because it makes us feel better. Like I said, we connected through Clubhouse, and um we became friends, followed each other on Instagram.
Can I just say how awesome these clubhouse rooms are? I feel like honestly, it's this time where there is space for people to talk about disability and disability policy and dealing with chronic illness. And like, for the people that don't want to join, like, great, they don't have to. It's like a place that I know that's like safe, where I can go and hear and talk, and connect with amazing people like yourself. And just continue to grow and learn, and be there for each other. So I'm a fan of Clubhouse. I can't wait until they roll out more accessibility features for
Yes.
those that are hard of hearing. um but that is hopefully coming once they're out of beta.
Yes. Yeah, I agree. I love that it does provide a space for any room topic that you would like, and you're able to talk about, or you're able to place your preferences and pick your preferences. So whatever it is that you like, those types of rooms will show up. Whether it's growing your Instagram and YouTube pages, or podcasting, or disabilities. And I'm very happy to see all of the multiple room topics dedicated to disabilities. And like you said, they talk about everything from childhood experiences of growing up with a disability to uh, policy changes. And there are people who work within the government that are talking about how we can help make changes in the world of disability. There are producers and filmmakers who are talking about disabilities in entertainment, which is it has been a
Mhm.
really, really big topic recently, because you don't see people with disabilities and stories of people with disabilities being told in the movies, or on TV. So Clubhouse has been really, really great.
Yeah, and on the note of representing people with disabilities in film, I think we've come a long way in terms of actually making films about people with disabilities, and I think that's amazing. But I was doing a lot of reflecting kind of amidst Sia's new movie that's coming out. And when I feel as though when you cast somebody without a disability to play someone with one, it can kind of discredit like that the disability as a whole. It's like, well, if an actor can do it, then maybe like I don't know, like obviously it doesn't give them that full authority to like be exactly who they are, and to represent the community as like properly, I would say.
Hmm.
So it's been kind of frustrating to see and frustrating to think about. Obviously we can't change what happened, and I think that's what happens when you have ableist perspectives trying to tell the story of disability. And I think there's obviously hundreds of thousands of incredible people with conditions that can play these roles. And I think the next step in media is going to be giving it to them.
Absolutely. Yeah, that is so true. And so I am grateful for Clubhouse for the ability to connect with people uh, who are willing to talk about these things and willing to share their stories. And I love your Instagram page. I just love your energy, and just the way that you are just so positive, and just real. Like, you really, like, you keep it real on your social media pages, and I really appreciate that. So in your, you're a photographer, and you really promote like the positive body image, and being positive, and I guess like good self-esteem and those types of messages, um, to educate people about your conditions, and other types of diagnoses that are out there. So what made you get into that whole message of body positivity, and using that as part of your message?
Yeah, thank you so much for the compliments. I really appreciate it. I would say that I have always done photography. I picked my camera up. Actually, it kind of happened at the exact same time that I was diagnosed with EDS, because I was told that I could no longer swim competitively. I was so again back to EDS, my shoulders are super hypermobile, so I could like almost do like a perfect butterfly, like better than other people because my shoulders were hypermobile.
Yeah.
So the doctors were like, if you don't stop this, it's not going to be good for you. So I stopped swimming. And then a couple injuries started to follow, which is when I was like, what can I do? I lost my passion for swimming because it was like taken from me. And I was like, what am I going to do? So I always loved art, and my dad had a camera, and I just kind of took it and with his permission, of course. And I started, just shooting as much as I could, and they weren't good at first. It takes time. There's like this saying that like you need to what is it? You put in your 10,000 hours to become a master at something, or you know, you come up with 10,000 ideas, and the 10,001st is like the breadwinner or something. Like, it's taken time, and I've been shooting since I was 11. I wouldn't say those beginning years were, really good, but those were foundational and necessary for me to get where I am today. And by the time I was in high school, I did have this like entrancement with putting my images on magazine covers. So I like would take photos of my friends and Photoshop the magazine covers on, because I was like, oh, look, my photos are good enough to be on magazine covers. But it was also about, you don't have to be a model to be on a magazine cover. And I didn't quite know how to articulate it when I was, in 11th grade when I made the book.
Hmm.
But, now it's just really full circle for me, because here I am 4 or 5 years later, and it's the exact thing I'm still talking about. So I feel like I had this passion early on. And when I was in FIT, so I actually transferred schools. I went to FIT for a year, and then I went to USC after. But in FIT, one of my projects was about, I made this documentary that's like, I feel like a supermodel. And it's about, that anyone can be a supermodel. You don't have to conform to the specific model body. You can be 5'2", and you can be 5'10", and you can be plus size, and you can have big boobs or like a small butt. Like, it's not, or body hair even, like it's not something that should be confined to measurements. Like, we're all beauty, and I think the right person and the right look is what the job should go to, and we shouldn't put limits on that. So basically that was freshman in college. And then I again started having these flare-ups and these issues. And I would say I lost my way a little when I was in LA, because Los Angeles can be a little bit jaded for anybody, I guess, coming in or out of it. It's like everyone is beautiful, everyone's skinny, everyone's blonde, everyone, people don't
Hmm.
talk about disability there. And I was like really confused, like, why is no one talking about the struggles? Why are no people talking about how difficult it is to live up to this obnoxious standard and reality of beauty? And then simultaneously I was having my flare-ups with my EDS, where, as I mentioned before, I ultimately ended up taking a reduced course load. But I figured if I can kind of like talk about and create images about my experience living with chronic illness, then maybe I can also talk about my passion and um I wouldn't call it an issue, but my yeah, maybe it is an issue. My issue with like society standards of body image. And also, I just want to mention that it goes back to when I was in middle school dealing with the first signs, I guess, of, body image issues, eating disorders are starting to come up. Those were times where I wish I had resources and I wish I had somebody to look up to and talk to about issues that, that I didn't fully understand. And I think that's really my motivation now, is educating youth and otherwise adults about issues that hopefully will become not issues in the near future.
Yes.
I do appreciate, all of the work you're doing, like absolutely incredible. And something I think we have in common is like the desire to educate people, especially
Yes.
those who it's not necessarily to like bring a change of perspective to them. It's just to give them a better understanding of what reality is, I think.
Yes.
And it's up to them if they want to, change their perspective. It says something about this next generation of kids in that they are like willing to really disrupt and break the boundaries and really like, I don't, from a kid's perspective, it's easy to say, I can be friends with anyone. I can, I don't care what somebody looks like. But obviously you take the blankets off when you're an adult, and it becomes a lot more scary than that.
Right. Yes.
And all of those nice, amazing things people said as kids are not so nice. And I think, at least from what you're saying in working with these kids, is that, they are coming to terms with their conditions earlier on, and they're learning how to articulate it earlier
Hmm.
on. I do seriously think that that's, attributed in part to all of the kids that, follow people like you and I, who are
Yes.
putting this work out there to make sure that they're comfortable and able to kind of talk about it. And because like I know I didn't have that when I was
Right.
younger.
And I
Mhm.
had to think about it like, wow, like I was never hidden or kept from people. I was always out and about and doing everything,
Right.
but we never talked about it. So now, like you said, it's being talked about more often. And even, now that I'm, and I don't call myself a full grown adult, because I'll never take on that responsibility. But with my friends having kids and me being around my friends who have kids, it's, that's been very helpful as well because they get to ask questions. And so I like to think that it prepares them for when they see someone who uses a wheelchair. They can say, oh, my mom's friend has a wheelchair. It's no big deal. And they'll be willing to, walk up to that new kid on the playground or new kid in the school and say like, oh, hey, like my mom's friend has a wheelchair. He has spina bifida. So they'll know all about these things. And just being open and willing to talk about it more, I think has been very helpful with breaking down these old stereotypes that exist. I love hearing stories where um, you've created something and developed a passion um, out of something that affected you, like you said back when you were in middle school, and you wish you had something or someone to look up to, and someone that you could talk about and share these things that you were going through at the time. So for you to then grow up to create something that middle school and even adults can look up to and say like, hey, it's okay. And um, I think that's just really great that you used your own experience to create something that will benefit so many other people. And
Yeah.
yeah, so with your again, back to your Instagram, you have created a series of IGTV, a show that is called Everything You Need Is Within. And that is, it's, I love the title. It's just really great. And could you talk about that and how you began that series of episodes and what the purpose is for creating that?
Yeah, absolutely. I thank you for your like attention to detail and like finding that out about me. I basically started this series on my IGTV, and we're going to be talking about a variety of things, but the title is Everything You Need Is Within. And I truly believe that we can, you know, get through our worst days, like we can get through today, and that only comes from within, and from the support that we have around us. And so far I've had some, you know, really awesome people on to talk about inclusive swimwear, and, you know, setting up your financial goals in your 20s. And you know, my first guest, her name was Jess, and we talked about disability in education, and how there really is a lack of uh, education around disability taught in school. And I think that is a place that sincerely needs to change, and we need to continue to talk about it. And there needs to be more, you know, children's books about it, and there needs to be a slight history of, you know, disability representation, and learning about disability movements in history, because I feel like I don't remember learning about those in my history classes. And maybe had I would have felt a little more comfortable at coming to terms with it. And something else that, you know, I think is really important to acknowledge, aside from the IGTV, is that, you know, we could talk about the word disability without it being this derogatory term. It's not.
Right.
And I think once we can get to a place where, you know, people don't see disability as this big bad thing, and they just kind of understand that it's literally, I mean, the definition is it's like something that literally limits your ability to do something.
Right.
And you know, once we kind of maybe view it that way, and just say like, oh, okay, some people need like help. It's like, oh, you're allergic to oranges, I'm allergic to apples. Okay, that doesn't make us like each like completely separate. We're still fruit, you know.
Right.
And I think hopefully once we all kind of destigmatize that word a little bit, it's
Hmm.
going to be just better for everyone, and will hopefully down the line, you know, it'll help younger kids, it'll help adults with disabilities. And yeah, sorry, that was a tangent. I'm like the queen of tangents.
No, it's great because I think that is, I think we begin to, break down the stereotypes by having conversations. So that
Right.
is exactly what you're doing through that series of on your IGTV. It's just you're having conversations about disabilities and
Yeah,
about and that's I love that you provided the definition of the word disability, because it's just like that's all it is. It limits one of your functions, and it's like, yeah, it limits, for me, it limits my ability to walk well. Like
hmm,
and so yes, I have a disability. It's okay.
right, right,
I have a disability, but yet I also like to do all these other things. And
absolutely.
and that's exactly what this podcast is about. And I feel that's what you are, through your work that you're doing. That's what we're trying to do. We're trying to um just really see, uh show people the other side of it. And what they choose to do with it, as you mentioned earlier, it's like that's up to them to change their own perspective of it. But it's just we have to do our part in having these conversations and talking about the lack of disability education, and the fact that they don't teach it in schools.
Mhm.
that there was a disabilities movement, and to make changes. And it's something more than that should just be a page or a paragraph in a history book. It should
Absolutely.
definitely be talked about a whole lot more. So I think I think it's very important that this IGTV series that you've started. And again, love the title, because I think we all have something, everything we need, we have it, within us to make those changes and to be the person that we need to be. And it's just just finding it and using it, and figuring out ways that we can use it to benefit the community at large, the larger population around us, people around us. So
Absolutely. And I
yeah.
think like another thing, I guess about why I kind of started this series was like, again, back to that idea of not having the resource to like view a YouTuber or a content creator who was, who I could relate to, other than being like, oh, like like you can watch a million things about fashion or lifestyle, but there's not really this conversation about disability and how
Right.
that affects your day-to-day life, and how your friendships have been impacted, and what it's done, to your family, and what, like, for example, like what exercise looks like people are like, oh yeah, I'm gonna work out. They don't realize what we mean, like, oh yeah, I'm gonna go like do PT for an hour.
Hmm.
Like I don't know, that's like a personal one, I guess, but it just goes back to having conversations about things that I wish I had kind of known when I was younger, and hopefully again inspiring these younger kids to do everything that they want to, and know that they can pursue a passion despite a disability, or despite any roadblock that they encounter.
And now that we have talked about your Instagram page, can you let everyone know what your Instagram page is, and
Oh yeah.
any other social media sites or platforms that you would like for them to follow you on?
Yeah, you guys can find me at it's Gigi Robinson. So you just type the little at sign and then it's Gigi Robinson. And
Yes.
that's on all social platforms, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, Twitter. And then I'm just Gigi Robinson on YouTube because I don't know, I couldn't figure out how to do it otherwise, but
Hmm.
yeah, it's pretty simple.
Yeah. So make sure you all go follow her. She has great content. And I really enjoyed the post that you have up. To wrap up this episode, and like I wrap up all of my episodes, I like to ask a version of the following question. And that is, what is most misunderstood about your diagnosis? So that can be as it applies to you. It can just be about EDS or mast cell, or POTS in general, or just people with disabilities in general. You can approach it in any way you'd like.
Yes, thank you so much for, having me on here. And I would say the biggest thing about EDS, and the chronic conditions that I have is really helping to educate others, which is, commonly like, well, the things that are commonly misunderstood, because I don't look like I'm sick most of the time, and I look like I'm totally fine. And because of my, bubbly personality, people don't see like when I'm like knocked out on my bed at home because I'm exhausted, or like when my flare ups are happening because I have to go to class. Like, people don't see that. And again, that's something I'm really grateful for that came out of 2020, is hopefully a more flexible schedule for those with disabilities, to give us, accommodations,
Yes.
or to be more flexible with the accommodations. And yeah, overall, I would just say the lack of understanding that you don't need to physically look ill to really be diagnosed with something. And if you're struggling with that, my DMs are open. I think Arthur's DMs are always open.
Absolutely.
That's why we're here. That's why we're talking about it.
Yes, definitely. I'm so glad you mentioned the flexible work schedules, because it's so crazy how many stories, again, back to Clubhouse, being in those rooms, hearing people tell their stories of they've asked for an accommodation to work from home or to have a flexible work schedule where they can, work in the office 2 or 3 days a week and work from home the other days, and they were denied. And now, because of the pandemic, everybody's working from home. So it's really interesting how it's like, oh, they couldn't do it, but now everybody has to do it. And it's just, it works, and it's possible. So yeah, it's really really interesting how that happened and how fast it happened. That it
Yep.
was just like, okay, yeah, it's Friday and starting Monday, everybody's working from home. But
Right.
yeah, being denied that as a person with a disability, and then to have it change for everybody, and good reason, of course, they had to do it, but it's just interesting how people with disabilities have been denied that same request,
Mhm.
and now it's granted to everybody.
Yeah, it's definitely something that, it gives you that perspective of like, oh, like, did our voice even matter? Does it matter?
Mhm.
Um, Especially in the workplace. And I think, we'll keep going, and the next thing will be in media, and after media it'll be in, or hopefully education before media, or vice versa. But
Yeah.
in education and media and in entertainment, and hopefully we can just be kinder people to one another and more understanding. I think that's what we all want.
Yes, definitely. Gigi, thank you so much for your time today. I really appreciate it. I've enjoyed this conversation and hearing your story. And so thank you so much. And I just appreciate you and the work that you're doing, and keep it up. And um, as a side note, I live in Jersey. So when I'm allowed back out, we're hanging out in the city.
Oh yeah.
So I love New York. It's like my favorite place. But you have a great day, and I will definitely be in touch.
Sounds great. Thank you so much for having me again. I enjoyed it. And yes, it's like so funny. I've been connecting with so many people virtually, and I'm like, once the pandemic's over, once we're vaccinated, like we will go out in the city,
Right.
and just get back to life as usual and have those fun conversations, and continue to disrupt whatever it is we can.
That's right. That's absolutely
Yeah.
right. But
Alrighty.
thank you so much. And you have a good day, and I'll be in touch.
Sounds good. Bye
All
bye.
right. Bye. Thank you for listening to this episode of the OurView Podcast. Leave us a review wherever you listen and let us know what you liked about this episode. Subscribe to our YouTube channel and be sure to follow us on all social media platforms for more disability-related content at Our View for Life. That's OurView, the number 4, LIFE. If you listen to this episode on your phone, take a screenshot and post it to your Instagram or Facebook stories, and be sure to tag us. We thank you for listening, and take care.